I should have known something was wrong when Gregory asked me to dress nicely for Sunday dinner. He never cared what I wore before. I should have known when I walked into my own dining room and saw his mother Diane sitting at the head of my table, a leather folder placed precisely in front of the empty chair beside her. I should have known when Gregory pulled out that chair for me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and his younger brother Trevor stood by the doorway like a guard. But I didn't know. Not until I sat down. "Naomi, we need to have a serious conversation about fairness," Diane began, her manicured nails drumming against the folder. She didn't wait for me to respond. "You've been married to my son for 3 years now. 3 years of living in this beautiful home, enjoying the comfort and security of a family structure." I glanced at Gregory. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His jaw was set in that stubborn way I'd started to recognize over the past year, the way it looked when he'd already made up his mind about something and refused to hear reason. "I'm not sure I understand," I said slowly, my hands gripping the edge of the table. The wood was smooth under my fingers, oak, expensive, something I'd saved for months to buy when I first purchased this house 7 years ago. "We're talking about contribution," Trevor chimed in, crossing his arms. "Fair contribution to the household." Diane slid the folder toward me. "Open it." My hands trembled as I lifted the cover. Inside were documents, official-looking papers with legal headers, highlighted sections, sticky notes with calculations written in Gregory's handwriting. The words blurred together at first. Pension, marital assets, equitable distribution, transfer of funds. "What is this?" I whispered. "It's simple, really," Gregory finally spoke, his voice matter-of-fact, like he was explaining a minor household repair. "You have a substantial pension from your job. We've been married for 3 years, which means I'm entitled to half of what you've earned during our marriage. But we're being generous. We're only asking for half of the total pension, not just the marital portion." The room spun. I looked down at the papers again. There were bank account numbers, my bank account numbers. There were calculations of my pension value. There was a place for my signature at the bottom with a line that read, "I, Naomi Fletcher, hereby agree to transfer." "You want half my pension?" I said, my voice barely audible. "It's only fair," Diane said, leaning back in her chair like a queen on a throne. "You live in this house. You live under this roof. Gregory has provided you with stability, with family, with his presence and support. That has value, Naomi. Financial value. This is my house," I said, the words coming out stronger now. "I bought this house. My name is on the deed. Mine alone." "A technicality," Trevor said, waving his hand dismissively. "You're married. What's yours is his. That's how marriage works." "That's not how any of this works." I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I'd refinished myself 2 years before Gregory and I even met. This house was mine before we got married. The pension is mine. I earned it. Gregory finally looked at me then, and what I saw in his eyes made my blood run cold. There was no love there. No warmth. Just cold calculation and something else, entitlement. "Naomi, sit down," he said quietly. "Let's be rational about this." "Rational?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You ambush me in my own home, present me with papers demanding half my life savings, and you want me to be rational?" "We're not demanding," Diane said, her voice taking on a sharp edge. "We're asking. As family. You do understand the concept of family, don't you?" The implication hung in the air. I had no family of my own. My parents had passed years ago, and I was an only child. They knew this. They'd always known this. Was that part of the plan too? "I need to think," I said, backing away from the table. "There's nothing to think about," Gregory said, standing now too. "This is happening, Naomi. We've already consulted with a lawyer. You signed a marriage certificate. In this state, that means shared assets." "Shared assets that existed before the marriage?" I challenged. "The pension contributions you made during the marriage," Trevor corrected, as if he were some kind of expert. "But like we said, we're being generous. We're not trying to nickel and dime you. Just sign the papers, make the transfer, and we can all move forward as a family." "And if I don't?" The question came out before I could stop it. The silence that followed was deafening. Diane's lips pursed into a thin line. Trevor shifted uncomfortably. Gregory's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Then we'll have problems," Diane finally said. "Big problems. You're living in our house now, Naomi. You married into this family. You play by our rules or you'll find yourself very alone. Do you understand what I'm saying?" I understood perfectly. This wasn't a request. It was a threat. I looked around the dining room at the walls I'd painted a soft gray 3 years ago, at the light fixture I'd installed myself, at the window seat I'd built where I used to sit on Sunday mornings with my coffee and a book. This was my sanctuary. My home. The place I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford, the place I'd poured my heart and soul into creating. And these people were sitting in it, telling me it was theirs. Telling me I owed them. Telling me to sign away half of everything I'd worked for. "I need some air," I said, walking toward the door. "Naomi," Gregory started. I said, "I need some air." My voice came out louder than I intended, echoing off the walls. "Get out of my house. All of you. Now." "We're not going anywhere until this is settled," Diane said calmly. "Then I'm leaving." I grabbed my purse from the hook by the door and my car keys from the bowl on the side table. As I reached for the doorknob, Gregory's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop me. "Don't make this difficult," he said softly, his face inches from mine. "Just sign the papers. It's the right thing to do." I looked down at his hand on my wrist, then back up at his face. This man I'd married. This man I'd loved. This stranger. "Let go of me," I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through my veins. He held on for another moment, his eyes searching mine for something: compliance, maybe, or fear. When he found neither, he released me. I walked out of my house and didn't look back. I drove for 20 minutes before pulling into the parking lot of a coffee shop I used to frequent before I got married. My hands were still shaking as I ordered a black coffee and found a seat in the corner, away from the windows. The documents were still in my purse. I grabbed them without thinking on my way out. Now I pulled them out and spread them across the small table, reading through each page carefully. They'd done their homework. I had to give them that much. The calculations were precise. They'd listed every contribution to my pension over the past 3 years, multiplied it by some formula I didn't understand, and arrived at a number that made my stomach turn. $247,000. $250,000. That's what they thought they were entitled to. I pulled out my phone and opened my photos, scrolling back through the years until I found what I was looking for. Pictures of the house the day I'd closed on it. 8 years ago now. I was 32 then, fresh off a promotion to senior engineer at Crawford Municipal Engineering. The house had been a mess. The previous owners had let it fall into disrepair: cracked windows, peeling paint, a yard that looked like a jungle. But I'd seen the potential. The solid bones. The beautiful original hardwood floors hiding under stained carpet. The built-in bookshelves that just needed refinishing. The spacious kitchen with good light. I'd spent every weekend for 2 years fixing it up. I'd learned how to tile a bathroom, how to replace electrical outlets, how to patch drywall. My co-workers at the firm had helped sometimes, bringing beer and pizza while we painted walls and installed ceiling fans. This was before Gregory. Before the wedding 3 years ago, before he'd moved into my space with his clothes and his opinions and his mother's phone calls. I scrolled further. There I was, covered in paint, grinning at the camera, holding up a paintbrush. There was the backyard after I'd cleared it, planted flower beds, installed the stone pathway. There was the guest room I'd converted into a home office, complete with custom bookshelves I'd designed myself. Every single thing in that house, I'd either bought or built or fixed with my own hands and my own money. Gregory had moved in 6 months after our wedding. He'd been living in an apartment across town, a place he was renting month to month. When his lease came up for renewal, I'd suggested he move in with me. It made sense. We were married. Why pay for 2 places when we could share one? "But the house is in your name," he'd said at the time. "Maybe we should put my name on the deed too. You know, to make it official." I'd hesitated. Something in my gut had told me to wait, to think about it. But I'd pushed that feeling aside. "Let's wait until we refinance," I'd said. "The interest rates might drop. We can add you then." He'd agreed. We'd never refinanced. Now I understood why he'd brought it up. This had been the plan all along. Not the pension specifically, maybe that had come later, but the idea that what was mine should be his. That my years of work, my sacrifices, my achievements somehow belonged to him by virtue of a marriage certificate. I thought about those 3 years. What had Gregory contributed to the household? He had a job assistant manager at a sporting goods store. He made decent money, around $40,000 a year. But where did that money go? I pulled up my banking app and started going through statements. The mortgage payment, all me. The property taxes, me. The insurance, me. The utilities, me. Groceries, mostly me, though he'd buy beer and sometimes pick up takeout on his way home from work. He'd bought a new truck 2 years ago. $60,000. He'd made the down payment from his savings and paid the monthly notes himself. I'd never asked where the money came from. I'd assumed he was being responsible, saving up. But if he'd been saving and I was paying for everything else, where had his money been going? I opened a new browser tab on my phone and searched for his name plus bank account. Nothing. Of course nothing. But the question remained. My coffee had gone cold. I ordered another one and went back to the documents. There was a phone number at the bottom, a law office. Bennett and Associates. I didn't recognize the name. I called the number. Bennett and Associates, how may I help you? A receptionist's voice, professional and distant. Yes, I'm calling about some documents that were prepared by your office. A pension transfer agreement. One moment, please. The hold music was classical, generic. My leg bounced under the table. This is Sharon Bennett. How can I help you? Ms. Bennett, my name is Naomi Fletcher. Your office prepared some documents regarding my pension. I'm calling to verify that these are legitimate. I'm afraid I can't discuss client matters over the phone without proper identification. However, if you received documents from our office, they would have our official letterhead and stamp. They do. Then yes, they're legitimate. If you have questions about the specific terms, you'll need to schedule an appointment. We're currently booking into next week. Who hired you? I asked. Who's your client? As I said, I can't discuss. I'm not asking for details. I'm asking who I'm dealing with. My husband? His mother? Who signed the check? There was a pause. The retainer was paid by Diane Fletcher. But the matter concerns you and your husband, Gregory Fletcher. I see. Thank you. I hung up before she could say anything else. Diane had paid for the lawyer. Of course she had. This was her plan. She'd probably been planning it since the day Gregory and I got engaged. I thought back to the wedding. Small ceremony, just immediate family and a few friends. Diane had insisted on hosting the reception at her house. She'd paid for everything, the food, the decorations, the cake. I thought she was being generous. Now I wondered if it had been an investment. My phone buzzed. A text from Gregory. Where are you? Come home. We need to talk like adults. I stared at the message. Come home. Like I was a child who'd run away from a disagreement. Like I was being unreasonable. I typed back, I need time to think. His response was immediate. There's nothing to think about. This is happening. I put my phone face down on the table. The coffee shop was filling up with the evening crowd, students with laptops, couples on dates, a group of teenagers laughing over shared desserts. Normal life. Normal people with normal problems. I'd been one of them once. Before Gregory. Before this marriage that I'd thought was based on love but now realized might have been based on something else entirely. My phone buzzed again. And again. I flipped it over. Gregory, Mom says you're being selfish. Gregory, this is what married people do. They share. Gregory, you're embarrassing me in front of my family. Gregory, answer me. I turned my phone off. The documents sat on the table in front of me, all neat and official and wrong. I gathered them up, slipped them back into my purse and stood up. I knew what I had to do. I'd known the moment I'd walked out of that house. I just needed time to accept it. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a hotel near the airport, a simple place with clean rooms and no questions asked. I needed space to think, to plan, to figure out my next move without Gregory's texts and calls and his mother's voice echoing in my head. The hotel room was generic beige walls, floral bedspread, a desk with a lamp and a Bible in the drawer. I sat at that desk and pulled out my laptop. First, I needed to understand exactly what I owned and what I didn't. I needed documentation, evidence, facts. I logged into my bank account. I'd been doing my banking with the same credit union for 15 years. They'd given me my first car loan, my mortgage, my business credit card. I trusted them. I downloaded every statement from the past 5 years, 2 years before the marriage, 3 years during. Then I opened a spreadsheet and started entering data. It took 3 hours. By the time I finished, it was past midnight and the picture was clear. Before Gregory moved in, my monthly expenses had averaged around $3,000. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities, groceries, gas, phone, internet, the occasional dinner out or weekend trip. I'd been comfortable. My salary as a senior civil engineer was $95,000 a year, plus benefits and pension contributions. I'd been saving about $20,000 annually. After Gregory moved in, my expenses had jumped to $4,500 a month. The mortgage and taxes were the same, but everything else had increased. Higher utility bills because he kept the air conditioning at 65 degrees all summer. More expensive groceries because he ate twice what I did. His truck insurance because he'd asked me to add it to my policy for a better rate and promised to pay me back each month, something I realized now had stopped after the first 6 months. I pulled up my email and searched for his name. There they were, Venmo requests I'd sent him. $50 for the electric bill. $120 for his share of the grocery run. $90 for his truck insurance. He'd paid maybe half of them. The rest had gone ignored. Over 3 years, I'd subsidized his life to the tune of at least $30,000. Maybe more. And now he wanted half my pension. I opened another file, the deed to my house. I'd downloaded it years ago when I'd first bought the place, but I pulled up the county records website to verify. There it was, clear as day, sole owner Naomi Fletcher. No mention of Gregory anywhere. I checked my pension account next. The city's retirement system had a good online portal. I logged in and looked at my contribution history. I'd been with the city for 12 years now. My pension was vested, guaranteed. The current cash value if I retired today was around $800,000. Gregory wanted half. But he hadn't contributed anything. Not to the house, not to the savings, not even to his share of the daily expenses. I needed legal advice. Real legal advice, not whatever Diane's lawyer was selling. I opened a new browser tab and searched for divorce attorney. The word felt strange even as I typed it. Divorce. Was that what this was coming to? Yes. The answer came immediately, clearly. Yes. But I needed to be smart about this. I needed someone good. Someone who understood property law and pension rights and wouldn't be intimidated by whatever tactics the Fletchers tried to use. I found a firm that specialized in complex divorce cases. Their website featured a woman named Patricia Monroe, lead attorney, 25 years of experience, board certified in family law. I filled out the contact form and requested a consultation for first thing Monday morning. Then I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about that moment in the dining room when I'd looked into Gregory's eyes and seen nothing. No love. No respect. Just cold calculation. How long had he been like that? Had he always been that way and I just missed it? Or had something changed? I scrolled through my phone looking at pictures from our relationship. The early days, us at concerts, at restaurants, on a weekend trip to the mountains. He was smiling in all of them. I was smiling too. We'd met at a friend's barbecue. He'd been funny, charming, easy to talk to. We'd dated for a year before he proposed. The proposal had been simple: dinner at my favorite restaurant, a ring he'd saved up for, a question that made my heart race. I'd said yes without hesitation. Now I wondered what I'd said yes to. Had he known about the house? About my pension? Had that been part of the attraction? I thought about his mother, Diane. She'd been polite at first, almost sweet. But after the engagement, she'd started making comments. Little digs about my clothes, my cooking, my job. Such long hours, she'd say. Poor Gregory sitting home alone. As if I was neglecting him by working the career I'd built before I'd even met him. And Trevor, Gregory's brother, who'd never held a job for more than 6 months. Who'd borrowed money from me twice, $2,000 the first time for car repairs, $5,000 the second time for a business opportunity, and never paid me back despite promising he would. I'd been a mark. The thought hit me like a physical blow. I'd been a target from the start. A woman with assets and no family to protect her. Perfect. My phone lit up on the nightstand. A text from Gregory sent hours ago that I was just seeing now because I turned my phone back on. I know you're upset. I get it. But Mom is right. This is about fairness. You have so much and I have so little. Is it so wrong to want to share? I read it 3 times. Each time I felt colder. He thought I had too much. He thought he deserved a piece of it. Not because he'd earned it, not because he'd contributed to it, but simply because he'd married me. I took screenshots of the text. I screenshot everything: his messages, his brother's messages asking to borrow money, the Venmo requests he'd ignored. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Evidence and started organizing it all. By the time the sun came up, I had a file 2 inches thick worth of documentation. Every bank statement showing my payments for our shared expenses. Every request for reimbursement he'd ignored. Every receipt I'd kept for house repairs, improvements, furniture. The original purchase documents for the house. My employment records showing my salary history and pension contributions. I also had a plan. Monday morning, I'd meet with the divorce attorney. I'd file before Gregory and Diane could make their next move. I'd change the locks on the house, my house. I'd open new bank accounts at a different institution and transfer my money there. I'd update all my passwords. I'd protect what was mine. But first, I needed to get back into my house safely. I needed my documents from the home safe: my birth certificate, my passport, my investment statements, the will I'd made when I bought the house. I needed clothes for work. I needed my laptop charger and my work files. I checked out of the hotel and drove home at 7 in the morning, hoping Gregory would already be at work. His store opened early on Sundays for the weekend shopping crowd. His truck wasn't in the driveway. I felt a wave of relief. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Everything looked normal. The dishes from last night's ambush were still on the dining room table. The leather folder with their demands sat exactly where Diane had left it. I went straight to my office and opened the safe. Everything was there. I pulled it all out and packed it into a canvas bag. Then I went to the bedroom and packed a suitcase, enough clothes for a week, my toiletries, my jewelry from the locked box in the closet. All of it mine, bought before the marriage. I was loading the suitcase into my car when I heard a vehicle pull into the driveway. Diane's silver luxury sedan. She got out slowly, deliberately, and stood at the end of the driveway with her arms crossed. "Running away again?" she called out. "Collecting my belongings," I said, closing the trunk. "Those are community property now." "No, they're not. I bought everything in this house before I married your son." She walked closer, her heels clicking on the concrete. "You think you're so smart. You think you can just refuse us and everything will be fine. But you don't understand how this works." "I understand perfectly." I met her eyes. "You want money you didn't earn from property you don't own. That's not complicated." Her face flushed red. "My son gave you 3 years of his life. He gave you companionship, stability, a family. That has value. If it had value to him, he wouldn't be demanding payment for it." "You're being very stupid, Naomi. Very stupid. We're trying to be reasonable." Reasonable would have been asking me if I wanted to help Gregory financially. Reasonable would have been having a conversation, not an ambush. Reasonable would have been treating me like a partner, not a bank account. I got into my car. "If you drive away," Diane said, her voice rising, "if you don't come back inside right now and sign those papers, you'll regret it. We'll make sure you regret it." I started the engine. "Have a nice day, Diane." I backed out of the driveway and left her standing there, her face twisted with rage. In my rearview mirror, I saw her pull out her phone. Calling Gregory probably. Or Trevor. Or her lawyer. I didn't care. Let them plan. Let them scheme. I had plans of my own now. Patricia Monroe's office was in a converted historic building downtown, the kind with high ceilings and crown molding and windows that actually opened. The waiting room had comfortable chairs and fresh flowers on the reception desk. The receptionist offered me coffee, which I accepted gratefully. I'd barely slept since Sunday. It was now Monday afternoon. I'd taken a personal day from work and I was running on caffeine and adrenaline. "Miss Fletcher?" A woman appeared in the doorway. Tall, maybe 55, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and glasses that made her look both intelligent and approachable. "I'm Patricia Monroe. Come on back." Her office was lined with law books and had a large desk positioned in front of windows overlooking the city. She gestured for me to sit in one of 2 leather chairs facing the desk. "Thank you for seeing me on short notice," I said. "Of course. Your intake form mentioned some urgency regarding property and pension concerns." She pulled out a legal pad and a pen. "Why don't you start from the beginning?" I told her everything. The Sunday dinner ambush. The documents demanding half my pension. The house I'd owned for 8 years before marrying Gregory. The 3 years of marriage where I'd paid for everything. His mother's threats. The lawyer she'd already hired. Patricia took notes the entire time, her expression neutral but focused. When I finished, she set down her pen. "First, let me be very clear about something," she said. "What your husband and his family attempted is called financial coercion, and it's taken very seriously by the courts. The fact that they ambushed you with legal documents demanding you sign over assets is actually a good thing for your case." "How is that good?" I asked. "Because it shows intent. It shows this wasn't a conversation about marital finances. It was an attempt to intimidate you into giving up property and assets you're not legally required to share." She flipped through the papers I'd brought. "Your house was purchased 8 years ago, 5 years before the marriage?" "Yes." "And the deed is in your name only?" "Yes." "Any refinancing since the marriage where he could claim he contributed?" "No." "Same mortgage, same terms." She made a note. "Good." "In this state, property owned before marriage remains separate property unless it's been commingled or retitled. Since your home is in your name only and was purchased with your funds before the marriage, it's yours. He has no claim to it." I felt something loosen in my chest. "And the pension?" "More complicated but still in your favor. Pension contributions made during the marriage are considered marital property, but only the portion earned during the marriage. If you've been contributing for 12 years and you've been married for 3, he'd only have a potential claim to the 3 years of contributions during the marriage, and even that would be divided equitably, not equally. What's the difference? Equitable means fair, based on circumstances. The court looks at what each party contributed to the marriage financially, domestically, emotionally. If you paid all the bills, maintained the home, and funded the lifestyle while he contributed minimally, the court isn't going to award him 50% of anything. Their lawyer told them he was entitled to half my total pension. Patricia's eyebrows raised. Their lawyer Sharon Bennett is either grossly incompetent or deliberately misleading them. Did you sign anything? No. I walked out. Smart. Very smart. She leaned forward. Here's what I recommend. We file for divorce immediately. Today if possible. We establish clearly that this is about protecting your separate property from fraudulent claims. We also file for a protective order if there's any indication of threats or intimidation. His mother said I'd regret it if I didn't sign. That's a threat. Document everything: texts, calls, in-person conversations. Record them if it's legal in your state to do so with single-party consent, which it is here. She pulled up a form on her computer. We'll also file an emergency motion to prevent him from accessing any of your accounts or attempting to claim the property. Do you have joint bank accounts? No. I opened my accounts years before we met. Good. Change your passwords anyway. All of them: bank, email, pension account, everything. Set up two-factor authentication. Make sure he can't access anything. I already did that. Excellent. You're thinking like a lawyer already. She smiled, but it faded quickly. Now the hard part. You need to secure the house. Is he still living there? I don't know. I left yesterday and stayed at a hotel. I went back this morning to get my documents, but he wasn't there. His mother showed up. What did she say? Threatened me. Said I'd regret not signing. Patricia made another note. We're adding all of this to the filing. Harassment, intimidation, attempted financial exploitation. She looked up at me. Naomi, I'm going to be straight with you. This is going to get ugly. People like this, people who think they're entitled to your money, don't back down easily. They'll fight. They'll spread lies. They'll try to paint you as the villain. Can you handle that? I thought about Sunday night. About Gregory's cold eyes. About Diane's threat. About 3 years of paying for everything while they saved their money and plotted. Yes, I said. I can handle it. Good. Then let's get started. We spent the next 2 hours going through every detail of my marriage, my finances, my property. Patricia had me sign form after form: divorce petition, motion for protective order, affidavit of separate property, financial disclosure statements. The filing fee is $425, she said. My retainer is $5,000, which will cover the initial work. If this goes to trial, we'll need to discuss additional fees. Will it go to trial? Probably not. Once Gregory and his mother see the evidence, you have the deed, the payment history, the messages, they'll realize they don't have a case. Bennett will tell them the same thing. But they might push anyway out of spite. Some people would rather spend money on lawyers than accept the truth. I wrote the check. $5,000. It was a lot of money, but it was nothing compared to what they wanted to take. When will he be served? I asked. We can have the sheriff serve him tomorrow at his workplace. Is that acceptable? I thought about Gregory standing at the counter of his sporting goods store, being handed divorce papers by a uniformed officer. Part of me felt guilty. The larger part felt satisfied. Yes, I said. Good. And Naomi? Patricia stood and extended her hand. You're doing the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I shook her hand and left the office feeling lighter than I had in days. On the drive back to my hotel, my phone rang. Gregory. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, there was a text. We need to talk. This is getting ridiculous. I screenshot the message and added it to my evidence folder. Another text. You can't just disappear. I'm your husband. Screenshot. Add to folder. Another. Mom's lawyer says if you don't sign, we'll take you to court and you'll lose everything. That one made me laugh out loud. Take me to court with what case? Based on what evidence? Patricia had been clear they had nothing. I texted back one last time. Contact me only through my attorney. Patricia Monroe at Monroe & Associates. I'll have her send you the information. Then I blocked his number. I blocked Diane's number. I blocked Trevor's number. I blocked anyone connected to the Fletcher family. For the first time in 3 days, I felt like I could breathe. Tuesday morning, I called a locksmith. I need every lock in my house changed, I told him. Front door, back door, side door, garage. Everything. That's not a problem. When would you like us to come out? Today. As soon as possible. We can have someone there by noon. Perfect. I'd spent Monday night at the hotel again, but I couldn't stay there forever. This was my house. My home. I wasn't going to let Gregory and his family push me out of it. At 11:30 I drove back home. Gregory's truck wasn't there. Good. I timed it right, he'd be at work until at least 6. The locksmith arrived at 12 sharp, a middle-aged man named Frank with a toolbox and a professional demeanor. I showed him every door, every lock. You want me to rekey them or replace them entirely? He asked. Replace them. I want completely new locks. That'll cost more. I don't care. He got to work. While he changed the locks, I started packing Gregory's belongings. I wasn't cruel about it. I folded his clothes neatly, packed his toiletries carefully, boxed up his books and his gaming console and his collection of baseball caps. Everything that was clearly his, I packed into boxes and plastic bins. It took 3 hours. By the time I finished, there were 27 boxes and bins stacked in the garage. Frank finished the last lock, the garage door, and handed me a set of new keys. All done. 5 new locks, all different keys from what you had before. Thank you. Do you want the old locks? No. Dispose of them however you normally do. He packed up his tools and gave me the receipt. $750. Worth every penny. After he left, I called a storage facility and rented a unit. Then I called a moving company and arranged for them to pick up Gregory's boxes the next morning and deliver them to the storage unit. I texted him the code and address after everything was moved. While I waited, I walked through the house room by room. Without Gregory's things, it looked different. Cleaner. More spacious. More like mine. In the bedroom, I stripped the bed and put on fresh sheets, ones I'd bought years ago and never used because Gregory said they were too fancy. I hung up pictures that had been in storage, photographs from my travels and my friends and my life before him. In the living room, I rearranged the furniture, putting it back the way I'd had it before he moved in. I took down his sports posters and put up the art I'd collected over the years. I was cleaning the kitchen when I heard a vehicle in the driveway. Gregory's truck. My heart started racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was my house. He had no right to be here. I heard his key in the lock. The scraping sound as it didn't work. Then again. Then his fist pounding on the door. Naomi. Open this door. I walked to the door but didn't open it. You don't live here anymore, Gregory? What are you talking about? This is my house too. No, it's not. It never was. Your belongings are being moved to a storage unit tomorrow. I'll send you the address. More pounding. You can't do this. You can't just lock me out. I can, and I did. You'll be served with divorce papers at work tomorrow. After that, any communication goes through our lawyers. Divorce. His voice went up an octave. You're divorcing me over a simple financial discussion? It wasn't a discussion. It was an ambush and a threat. Naomi, please. His tone changed, becoming softer, pleading. Baby, come on. Let me in. We can talk about this. I'm sorry if we came on too strong. We can work this out. No, we can't. Don't do this. Don't throw away 3 years over a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. You wanted half my pension. You and your mother threatened me. You've been using me financially for 3 years. I have all the documentation, Gregory. All of it. Silence. Then, I never used you. Yes, you did. I have every Venmo request you ignored. Every bill I paid that you should have split. Every dollar you borrowed and never paid back. It's over. You're being crazy. You know that? You're being a crazy. I walked away from the door. I didn't need to hear the rest. He pounded and yelled for another 10 minutes. Then I heard him on his phone, his voice muffled through the door. Calling his mother, probably. Eventually he left. I heard the truck start, the sound of gravel under his tires as he backed out too fast. I sat down on my couch in my house with my new locks and cried. Not for him. Not for the marriage. But for the time I'd wasted. For the trust I'd given. For the version of him I'd thought existed but maybe never had. When I was done crying, I made dinner. Just for me. Something I liked that Gregory had always complained about. I ate at my dining room table and looked out at the backyard I'd landscaped myself. This was my life. Mine. And I was taking it back. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Diane. What you're doing is cruel and vindictive. Gregory is devastated. You should be ashamed. I blocked the number without responding. Another text from another unknown number. I hope you're happy ruining my brother's life. You're pathetic. Trevor. I blocked him too. The texts kept coming from different numbers. I blocked them all. After the 7th one, I turned my phone off entirely. Tomorrow, Gregory would be served at work. Tomorrow this would become official. Tomorrow there would be no going back. I slept in my own bed that night in my own house, with my new locks and my peace of mind. And I slept better than I had in months. The text started at 6 in the morning. Unknown number, you're making a huge mistake. Unknown number, Gregory is willing to forgive you if you stop this now. Unknown number, think about what you're throwing away. I turned my phone back on to check the time, and they flooded in one after another. Diane had clearly recruited friends and family to harass me with messages. I blocked each number and made a note to talk to Patricia about getting a restraining order. At 9:15, Patricia called. He's been served. The sheriff delivered the papers to him at work about an hour ago. How are you doing? I'm okay. His family is sending me messages from different numbers. Forward them all to me. Every single one. This is harassment and it strengthens our case. She paused. Are you safe? Do you feel threatened? No. I'm in my house with new locks. I'm fine. Good. Keep documenting everything. If anyone shows up at your house, call the police. Don't engage with them. I won't. After we hung up, I got ready for work. I'd already missed 2 days and I had projects that needed my attention. My team at the engineering firm was understanding, but I couldn't hide forever. I arrived at the office at 10 and immediately got pulled into a meeting about a new municipal contract. It was a relief, honestly, to focus on something normal. Bridge specifications, soil reports, budget timelines, things that made sense, things I could control. During lunch, my desk phone rang. The receptionist downstairs. Naomi, there's someone here to see you. Says she's your mother-in-law? My stomach dropped. Tell her I'm not available. She's being persistent. Should I call security? Yes, please. 5 minutes later, my cell phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Then my work email dinged a message from an address I didn't recognize with the subject line, "You can't ignore this." I deleted it without opening it. My coworker Janet knocked on my office door. Hey, you okay? There's some woman downstairs causing a scene. Says she's your family? She's not. Well, technically she's my mother-in-law, but I'm divorcing her son. Janet raised her eyebrows. Messy divorce. Very. Want me to stay nearby? In case you need backup? I smiled. Thanks, but security's handling it. I appreciate it though. She left and I tried to focus on my work. But 15 minutes later, my boss called me into his office. Naomi, what's going on? Thomas was a good man, fair, someone I'd worked with for over a decade. I just got a call from our front desk saying your mother-in-law is threatening to call the police if we don't let her see you. I'm going through a divorce, I said. She's upset about it. I'm sorry she came here. I didn't think she would. Do you need to take some time off? We can arrange. No. I need to work. Work is good. I just need her to leave me alone. Security's escorting her out now. I've told the front desk not to let her back in the building. If she shows up again, we'll call the police. Thank you. I'm really sorry about this. Don't be. Just take care of yourself. He hesitated. If you need anything, time off, a flexible schedule, whatever, let me know. I went back to my office and tried to concentrate on soil density reports, but my mind kept drifting. How far would they go? What else would they try? At 5 o'clock my phone rang. Patricia. We have a hearing scheduled for next week, she said. Preliminary hearing to address the emergency motion. The judge will decide on the protective order and temporary property arrangements. That fast. I told you this would move quickly. Are you prepared to testify? Yes. Good. Gregory's attorney filed a response today. They're claiming he has a right to half the marital assets, including the house. The house I owned before we got married? Yes. Their argument is that since he lived there and contributed to the household, he has an equitable interest. It's nonsense, but they're making the claim. What happens if they win? They won't. The evidence is too clear. But be prepared for them to fight dirty. They'll attack your character, your motives, your finances. They'll try to paint you as selfish and vindictive. I'm not afraid of that. I know. That's why you're going to win. After the call, I drove home, checking my rearview mirror constantly to make sure no one was following me. The driveway was empty. The house was quiet. I went inside, locked all the new locks behind me, and made dinner. At 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Trevor, Gregory's brother. I know you're in there, Naomi, he yelled. Open up. I pulled out my phone and called the police. I need to report someone trespassing on my property, I told the dispatcher. I gave her my address and described Trevor. Officers are on the way. Stay inside and don't open the door. Trevor kept ringing the bell, pounding on the door, yelling. This is ridiculous. You're tearing this family apart. All over money. You're so selfish. I recorded everything on my phone, the yelling, the pounding, the accusations. The police arrived 10 minutes later. I watched from the window as they talked to Trevor on my front lawn. He gestured wildly, pointing at the house, clearly trying to explain why he had a right to be there. One officer came to my door. I opened it, keeping the chain lock on. Miss Fletcher? I'm Officer Rodriguez. Are you okay? I'm fine. That's my soon-to-be ex-brother-in-law. I'm going through a divorce and his family is harassing me. Do you want to press charges for trespassing? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to. But another part of me knew it would just escalate things. Not this time, I said. But I want it documented. I'm filing for a restraining order. Understood. We've told him to leave and not to come back. If he returns, call us immediately and we'll arrest him. Thank you. I watched Trevor get in his car and drive away, the police following to make sure he actually left. Then I went back inside, locked all the doors and forwarded the video to Patricia. This was the siege Patricia had warned me about. They were trying to wear me down, to make me so exhausted and stressed that I'd give in just to make it stop. But I wouldn't. I couldn't. This was about more than money now. This was about standing up for myself. About refusing to be taken advantage of. About claiming my own life back. I slept with my phone on the nightstand that night, ready to call the police again if needed. But the night was quiet. For now. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. I took the day off work and met Patricia at the courthouse at 8:30. Remember, she said as we walked up the steps, stay calm. Answer only what's asked. Don't let them bait you into an emotional response. I'll be fine. I know you will. The courtroom was small, not like the dramatic courtrooms on TV, but a simple room with a judge's bench, a few tables and chairs for observers. Gregory was already there with Sharon Bennett, his mother's lawyer. He looked tired, his eyes red. When I walked in, he stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Diane sat in the front row of the observer section, her face tight with anger. Trevor was next to her. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. Please be seated. This is a preliminary hearing for the case of Fletcher versus Fletcher. I've reviewed the initial filings from both parties. Ms. Monroe, you filed an emergency motion for a protective order and confirmation of separate property. Would you like to present your argument? Patricia stood. Yes, Your Honor. This is a straightforward case. Ms. Naomi Fletcher owned her home outright for 5 years before marrying the respondent. The property deed is solely in her name. She purchased it with her own funds, maintained it with her own funds, and the respondent has contributed nothing to the mortgage, taxes, or improvements. I have the deed here, Patricia continued, handing copies to the judge and to Sharon Bennett. I also have bank statements showing that Ms. Fletcher paid all household expenses during the marriage while the respondent contributed minimally and often failed to reimburse her for agreed-upon shared costs. The judge looked through the documents. Ms. Bennett, what's your response? Sharon stood. Your Honor, while it's true that Ms. Fletcher purchased the home before the marriage, my client lived in that home as her husband for 3 years. He contributed to the household in other ways: emotional support, companionship, household labor. Did he contribute financially? The judge interrupted. He contributed what he could afford. That's not what I asked. Did he pay any portion of the mortgage, taxes, insurance, or major expenses? Sharon hesitated. Not directly, but... Yes or no, counselor? No, Your Honor. The judge made a note. What about the pension claim? You're arguing that your client is entitled to half of Ms. Fletcher's pension. Yes, Your Honor. Pension contributions made during the marriage are marital property. Half of the pension or half of the contributions made during the marriage? Another hesitation. We believe he's entitled to half the entire pension. On what legal basis? The judge's tone was sharp now. Ms. Fletcher has been contributing to this pension for 12 years. She was married for 3. Are you seriously arguing that 3 years of marriage entitles your client to 6 years of pension contributions that occurred before he even met her? The marriage entitles him to an equitable distribution. Equitable, not equal. And certainly not more than equal. The judge looked at Gregory. Mr. Fletcher, stand up please. Gregory stood, looking nervous. Did you contribute to your wife's pension? No, Your Honor, but... Did you pay the mortgage on the house? No, but I lived there. Did you pay the property taxes? No. The insurance? No. Did you contribute to any major household expenses? Gregory's face reddened. I paid for groceries sometimes. And I bought furniture. What furniture? The judge asked. A TV stand. A lamp. A TV stand and a lamp. In 3 years. The judge looked back down at her papers. According to the financial disclosure here, you make $40,000 a year. Where did that money go if you weren't contributing to household expenses? I have my own expenses. My truck payment. A $60,000 truck, the judge noted. Which you purchased during the marriage without contributing to the household expenses your wife was covering. Is that correct? Yes, but... Sit down, Mr. Fletcher. Gregory sat, his face now fully red. Diane looked furious in the front row. The judge turned to Sharon. Counselor, I'm going to be very direct with you. This case is baseless. Your client has no claim to property purchased and maintained solely by Ms. Fletcher before the marriage. He has no claim to pension contributions made before the marriage. At best, he might have a claim to 3 years of pension contributions made during the marriage, which would be divided equitably based on his contributions to the marriage, which appear to be minimal at best. Your Honor, I'm not finished. What concerns me more is the evidence of financial coercion. Ms. Monroe has provided text messages, testimony, and a police report documenting harassment and intimidation. Mr. Fletcher and his family attempted to pressure Ms. Fletcher into signing over assets she's not legally required to share. That's not negotiation. That's coercion. She looked at Gregory again. Did you ambush your wife with legal documents demanding she sign over half her pension? Gregory looked at his lawyer. Sharon nodded. Yes, he admitted quietly. Did your mother hire the attorney who prepared those documents? Yes. Did you or your family members threaten Miss Fletcher when she refused to sign? We didn't threaten. Your mother told her she would regret it. Your brother showed up at her house and refused to leave until police were called. You've sent numerous messages from different phone numbers after she blocked you. That's harassment, Mr. Fletcher. I just wanted to talk to her. You wanted to intimidate her into giving you money? There's a difference. The judge closed the file. Here's my ruling. Ms. Fletcher's home is confirmed as her separate property. Mr. Fletcher has no claim to it and is prohibited from entering the property or contacting Ms. Fletcher directly. All communication must go through attorneys. Regarding the pension, we'll schedule a hearing to determine the marital portion of the pension contributions and how they should be divided. However, Mr. Fletcher should understand that his claim is limited to contributions made during the marriage, and the division will be based on his actual contributions to the household. Finally, I'm granting a temporary restraining order. Mr. Fletcher, his mother Diane Fletcher, and his brother Trevor Fletcher are prohibited from contacting Ms. Fletcher directly, from coming within 500 feet of her home or workplace, and from making any further demands regarding property or assets. Violation of this order will result in arrest. Sharon stood. Your Honor, we'd like to save it for the next hearing. This preliminary matter is resolved. The divorce will proceed. Next case. The judge stood and we all stood with her. Then she left and it was over. I felt Patricia's hand on my shoulder. That went well. That went better than well, I said, relief flooding through me. She saw right through them. Across the courtroom, Sharon was talking to Gregory in hushed, angry tones. Diane was standing now, glaring at me with pure hatred. Let's go, Patricia said. Don't engage with them. We walked out of the courtroom and into the hallway. Behind us, I heard Diane's voice. This isn't over, Naomi? I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. Outside, in the bright sunlight, I finally let myself breathe. What happens now? I asked Patricia. Now we wait for the next hearing on the pension division. But honestly, after that performance in there, I'd be surprised if they don't settle. The judge made it very clear they don't have a case. What if they don't settle? Then we go to trial and they lose. Either way, you're going to be fine. I believed her. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I believed everything was going to be fine. 2 days after the hearing, on Saturday morning, I was in my backyard pulling weeds from the flower beds when I heard the doorbell ring. I almost didn't answer it. I'd been enjoying the peace, the quiet, the simple satisfaction of working with my hands in the garden I'd created. But the bell rang again and I sighed, pulled off my gardening gloves and went inside. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. 30s, professionally dressed, holding a small plant in a pot. Can I help you? I called through the door. Naomi? My name is Beverly Fletcher. I'm Gregory's sister. Please don't close the door, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to talk to you. Please. Gregory had a sister? He'd never mentioned a sister. In 3 years of marriage, he'd never once talked about having a sister. I opened the door but left the chain lock on. He never told me he had a sister. I'm not surprised. Beverly smiled sadly. I've been estranged from the family for 6 years. But I heard about what's happening through a mutual friend, and I wanted to come apologize to you. For what they did. For what they're doing. Why? Because they did it to me too. I studied her face. She had Gregory's eyes but softer somehow, kinder. There was no calculation there, no coldness. I unhooked the chain and opened the door. Come in. She handed me the plant, a small lavender in a ceramic pot. Peace offering. I know it's not much. Thank you. We sat in my living room. I made coffee and she looked around the space with appreciation. This is a beautiful home, she said. You did all this yourself? Most of it, yes. Gregory always did have an eye for accomplished women. She took a sip of her coffee. That's his type. Women with their lives together. Women with assets. I'm starting to understand that. Beverly set down her cup. I need to tell you something. Something that might help you understand what you're dealing with. 6 years ago, I was married to a man named Christopher. Good man, successful architect. We bought a house together in my name because my credit was better. Chris contributed to payments, but the deed was mine. My mother Diane convinced Gregory and Trevor that Chris was using me. That I needed to protect myself. She talked me into asking Chris for half the value of the house as insurance, even though we weren't getting divorced or anything. She said it was just smart financial planning. What happened? I asked. Chris left me. He said if I trusted my mother more than I trusted him, then we didn't have a marriage. He was right. I lost him because I listened to her. And you want to know the worst part? After Chris left, my mother sat me down and explained her real plan. Beverly's eyes filled with tears. She wanted me to marry Chris for his connections in the architecture community. She thought it would help Trevor get a job, help Gregory get contracts. When Chris refused to play along with her networking schemes, she wanted me to extract money from him as compensation for wasting my time. Those were her actual words. I felt sick. She planned it? She plans everything. Gregory and Trevor, they're not bad people on their own. They're weak people who listen to a manipulative woman. She raised them to believe that marriage is a transaction, that women with money owe them something, that taking advantage of a spouse is just smart business. I cut them all off after Chris left. I moved across the country, changed my number, started over. I built a good life. I'm remarried now to a wonderful man, and we have a prenup because I learned my lesson. She smiled sadly. When I heard what they did to you, the ambush, the pension demand, I knew it was my mother's plan. Same playbook. Different target. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you need to know what you're fighting. It's not just Gregory. It's her. She's been doing this for years. My father was a successful contractor. When he died, she got everything, his business, his savings, his life insurance. Then she moved on to training her sons to do the same thing. She trained them to marry for money? She trained them to see marriage as an opportunity. Gregory's first girlfriend in college was a trust fund kid. He dated her for 2 years. My mother was already planning how they'd get access to her family's money. The girlfriend figured it out and dumped him. Beverly leaned forward. You're not the first, Naomi. You're just the first one who fought back. I didn't know what to say. The coffee had gone cold in my cup. I'm telling you this, Beverly continued, because I want you to know that you're doing the right thing. Don't feel guilty. Don't let them make you think you're being selfish or cruel. You're protecting yourself from people who see you as a resource, not a person. Thank you, I said quietly. I needed to hear that. There's something else. She pulled a folder from her bag. I kept records. Emails from my mother outlining her financial strategies. Text messages between her and my brothers about targeting women with assets. I've already sent copies to your lawyer Patricia Monroe, right? But I wanted to give you a set too. I took the folder and opened it. Inside were printed emails, screenshots of text messages, even handwritten notes. It was all there, Diane's calculations, her advice to her sons, her plans. One email, sent to Gregory 4 years ago, made my stomach turn. The engineer seems promising. Homeowner, good pension, no family to interfere. Be charming but don't commit until you see the financial statements. She vetted me, I whispered. She vets everyone. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I'm sorry my family did this to you. It's not your fault. No, but I should have warned someone. I should have spoken up years ago. Instead, I just disappeared and tried to forget they existed. She stood. I need to go. My husband is waiting in the car. He didn't want me to come alone. But if you need anything, if you need someone to testify about the pattern of behavior, call me. She handed me a card with her phone number and email. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you for fighting back. Maybe this time, my mother will finally face consequences for what she does. I walked her to the door and watched her get into a car where a man sat in the driver's seat, clearly worried about her. She waved as they drove away. I went back inside, sat down with the folder and read through everything. By the time I finished, I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't sad. I was angry. This wasn't about a failed marriage. This was about a predator who raised her children to be predators too. And I was going to make sure everyone knew it. The divorce hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks after Beverly's visit. Patricia spent those weeks preparing our case, and with Beverly's evidence, it became much more than a simple divorce proceeding. We're not just fighting for your property rights anymore, Patricia explained. We're exposing a pattern of fraud and financial abuse. The judge needs to see this. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in a navy suit and white blouse. Professional, confident, strong. I met Patricia outside the courtroom. Beverly is here, she said, gesturing to where Beverly sat on a bench, her husband beside her. She's ready to testify if needed. Do you think we'll need her? I don't know. Depends on how aggressive Sharon Bennett decides to be. We entered the courtroom. Gregory sat at the defendant's table with Sharon. Diane was not in the courtroom. Patricia had filed a motion to exclude her since she wasn't a party to the divorce and had been named in the restraining order. The judge, the same one from the preliminary hearing, entered, and we all stood. This is the final hearing for Fletcher versus Fletcher, she began. We're here to resolve remaining issues regarding property division and pension distribution. Ms. Monroe, you've filed additional evidence since our last hearing? Yes, Your Honor. Patricia stood and approached the bench with a thick folder. We've received documentation from Beverly Fletcher, the respondent's sister, showing a pattern of financial manipulation orchestrated by the respondent's mother, Diane Fletcher. This evidence demonstrates that the initial pension demand was part of a larger scheme to extract money from Ms. Fletcher through coercion and fraud. Sharon shot to her feet. Objection. This is character assassination. Whatever issues Mr. Fletcher's mother may have are irrelevant to this divorce proceeding. Your Honor, Patricia countered, the mother hired and paid for the attorney who prepared the fraudulent pension transfer documents. She was present during the initial confrontation. She made direct threats to my client. Her involvement is central to this case. The judge looked through the folder. I'll allow it. Continue, Ms. Monroe. Patricia presented everything: Beverly's testimony, the emails, the text messages, the documented pattern. She called Beverly to the stand. Beverly testified clearly and calmly about her own experience, about the way Diane had manipulated her marriage, about the emails she'd seen where Diane discussed targeting women with assets. Did you ever witness your mother discussing Miss Fletcher specifically? Patricia asked. Yes. At a family dinner about 6 months after Gregory started dating her. My mother said, she owns her home outright. No mortgage. That's smart. Make sure she doesn't want a prenup. I left early because I knew what she was planning. Gregory looked down at the table, his face pale. Sharon cross-examined but couldn't shake Beverly's testimony. Everything she said was backed up by documentation. Then Patricia called me to the stand. I testified about the 3 years of marriage, about paying all the expenses, about the ambush at the family dinner. I remained calm, factual, precise. I didn't exaggerate or embellish. I just told the truth. Miss Fletcher, Patricia asked, in your 3 years of marriage, did your husband ever discuss sharing household expenses equally? Yes. He agreed to pay half of utilities and groceries. He paid maybe 30% of what he owed. Do you have documentation? Yes. I sent him payment requests through Venmo. Most went ignored. Patricia entered the Venmo records into evidence. Did you ever ask your husband to contribute to the mortgage? No. The house was mine before we married. I never expected him to pay the mortgage. I only expected him to pay his share of daily expenses. Did he? No. Sharon's cross-examination was brief. She tried to paint me as financially controlling, as someone who kept track of every penny to use against Gregory later. Miss Fletcher, isn't it true that you resented your husband's truck purchase? No. He has the right to buy what he wants with his money. I only resented that he made that purchase while not paying his agreed-upon share of household expenses. Did you ever tell him you were unhappy with his financial contributions? Many times. And yet you stayed married to him. Until he tried to steal half my pension, yes. The judge interrupted. Miss Bennett, is there a question? No, Your Honor. She sat down and I stepped off the stand. The judge took a short recess to review all the evidence. When she returned, her expression was serious. I've reviewed everything presented today, she said. This is one of the most troubling cases I've seen in my 20 years on the bench. What we have here is not a disagreement about marital assets. What we have is a calculated attempt to defraud Ms. Fletcher of property and assets she earned and owned independently. She looked at Gregory. Mr. Fletcher, I don't know if you were the architect of this scheme or just a willing participant, but either way your actions were reprehensible. You married a woman with assets and immediately began planning to extract money from her. You contributed minimally to the household while saving your own money. Then you and your family attempted to intimidate her into signing over hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here is my ruling. The house at 4217 Oakmont Drive is confirmed as the sole property of Naomi Fletcher. Mr. Fletcher has no claim to it whatsoever. Regarding the pension, Mr. Fletcher is entitled to exactly $0. While pension contributions made during a marriage are typically considered marital property, that rule applies when both parties contribute meaningfully to the marriage. Mr. Fletcher's contributions were negligible at best and fraudulent at worst. Therefore, he receives nothing. The divorce is granted. Ms. Fletcher is awarded full ownership of all property, accounts, and assets in her name. Mr. Fletcher is ordered to pay $3,000 in court costs and attorney fees as a sanction for filing frivolous claims. Sharon started to speak, but the judge held up her hand. I'm not finished. I'm also ordering that copies of this case file, including all evidence of Ms. Diane Fletcher's involvement, be forwarded to the district attorney's office for review. Financial coercion and fraud are criminal matters, and they should be investigated. She banged her gavel. This case is closed. I sat there stunned. It was over. Really over. Patricia leaned over and whispered, You won. Completely. Gregory looked destroyed. Sharon was already packing up her files, clearly wanting to get away from this disaster of a case as fast as possible. Beverly caught my eye from the observer section and smiled, giving me a thumbs up. We left the courtroom and I felt like I was floating. What happens now? I asked Patricia outside. Now you go live your life. The divorce is final in 30 days, but for all practical purposes it's done. The house is yours. The pension is yours. Everything is yours. What about the district attorney investigation? That's out of our hands. They'll review the evidence and decide if there's enough for criminal charges. My guess? Diane will get a visit from investigators at minimum. Whether it goes further, we'll see. I shook her hand. Thank you. For everything. You did this, Naomi. You stood up for yourself. You gathered evidence. You didn't back down. I just helped with the paperwork. I walked to my car, got in, and sat there for a moment. I'd won. I'd actually won. The house was mine. The pension was mine. My life was mine. And I was never giving it up again. 6 months later, on a perfect Saturday in early spring, I hosted a garden party. The backyard looked amazing. I'd spent weeks preparing, planting new flowers, repairing the stone pathway, setting up string lights and a long table with white linens. The garden I created years ago was in full bloom. 20 people came. Janet from work and her husband. Beverly and her husband Christopher. Yes, she'd reconciled with her ex-husband after he learned the truth about what Diane had done, and they'd remarried. 3 of my neighbors who'd supported me through the divorce. Friends from my engineering firm. Patricia Monroe, my attorney, who'd become a friend. And new friends, 2 people I'd met through a professional organization for women in engineering that I joined after the divorce. People who inspired me, who challenged me, who saw me as a person, not as an opportunity. We ate good food, drank wine, told stories, laughed. No one mentioned Gregory or Diane or the divorce unless I brought it up, and I mostly didn't. That was the past. This was the present. Your home is beautiful, one of the new friends said, a structural engineer named Candace who'd recently started her own consulting firm. How long have you been here? 8 years. I bought it when I was 32. By yourself. By myself. That's amazing. I'm trying to save up for a house now, but the market is crazy. It was crazy then too. But I made it work. Let me know if you want to talk strategy. I'm happy to share what I learned. We talked for an hour about mortgages and interest rates and down payment strategies. She took notes on her phone. By the end she was grinning. I can do this, she said. Thank you. You're welcome. Women need to help each other build wealth. That's how we stay independent. Beverly found me later in the kitchen helping refill drink pitchers. This is wonderful, she said, gesturing to the party outside. You look happy. I'm happy. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again. Have you heard anything about the investigation? I nodded. Diane was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. She took a plea deal, probation, fines, community service. No jail time, but it's on her record now. And Gregory? Last I heard, he moved back in with her. Trevor too. They're all living in her house together. I poured lemonade into a pitcher. Patricia says he tried to date someone new, but the woman found out about the case through a mutual friend and ended it immediately. Beverly winced. I'd feel sorry for him if he hadn't done it to himself. He made his choices. He could have been honest with me. He could have been a real partner. Instead, he chose to scheme. Do you miss him at all? I thought about it. No. I miss who I thought he was. But that person never existed. The real Gregory? I don't miss him at all. We went back outside to join the party. The sun was setting and the string lights were starting to glow. Someone had started music, playing something soft and jazzy. Patricia found me near the flower beds. I have news, she said. Sharon Bennett was censured by the state bar for her handling of your case. She won't lose her license, but it's a formal reprimand on her record. Good. She knew those pension documents were fraudulent. She did. And now she's paying for it professionally. Patricia smiled. You started something, Naomi. I've had 3 other women contact me in the past month with similar stories. Husbands or in-laws trying to claim property the women owned before marriage. We're fighting back. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. As the evening went on, I found myself standing alone for a moment, looking at my house. My beautiful house with its gray walls and refinished floors and all the work I'd put into it. In the windows, I could see the reflection of the party people laughing, talking, enjoying themselves in the space I'd created. This was mine. Not because I'd fought for it in court, though I had. But because I'd built it with my own hands, my own money, my own vision. No one could take that away from me. No one would ever take that away from me again. Janet joined me, 2 glasses of wine in her hands. She offered me one. To independence, she said, raising her glass. To independence, I echoed. We drank and I felt something settle in my chest. Peace. Real peace. The party went on until nearly midnight. People helped me clean up, laughing and chatting as we folded tables and collected glasses. By the time everyone left, I was exhausted but content. I walked through the house one more time before bed, turning off lights, locking doors with my new locks. In my bedroom, with my furniture and my decorations and my choices, I changed into comfortable clothes and sat on the edge of the bed. My phone buzzed. A text from Beverly, "Thank you for including us tonight. Chris said it was the best party he's been to in years. You're an inspiration." I smiled and texted back, "Thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth. You saved me." I set the phone down and looked around the room. Everything in here I'd chosen. Everything in this house I'd built or bought or repaired. This was my sanctuary, my achievement, my home, and it always would be. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, scared, angry, hurt, but determined. I thought about standing in that courtroom telling my truth. I thought about changing the locks, filing the papers, refusing to back down. I thought about all the women who'd come before me who hadn't been able to fight back, who'd lost their homes and their savings and their independence to people who saw them as resources instead of human beings. And I thought about the women who'd come after me, who would find the courage to stand up for themselves because they'd heard my story or Patricia's or Beverly's. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. I'd started a small scholarship program through my professional organization, helping young women in engineering pay for their education and offering mentorship. I'd donated to legal aid programs that helped women through difficult divorces. I'd started speaking at events about financial independence and protecting your assets. My story had become bigger than just me. And that felt right. I turned off the light and lay down in my bed, in my house, in my life. Tomorrow I'd wake up and go for a run. Then I'd work on the kitchen renovation I'd been planning, new countertops, new backsplash, exactly what I wanted. Maybe I'd call Candace and see if she wanted to grab lunch and talk more about house hunting strategies. Tomorrow and all the days after that would be mine. To plan, to build, to live as I chose. I'd taken my life back. And I was never letting it go again. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the woman who'd sat in that dining room 6 months ago, shocked and hurt and cornered. I wanted to tell her, "You're stronger than you know. You're going to fight and you're going to win. And on the other side of this nightmare, you're going to find yourself again. The real you. The woman who built a home and a career and a life. The woman who refused to be used. The woman who stood up and said no when everyone expected her to say yes. You're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to be free."